Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Oh my.
Welcome back to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Oh my. What's cool about today's episode is we have a recurring guest. And what's cool about recurring guests is you could instantly, I know how Cage feels about the guest as soon as they hop on. And I might include the behind the scenes because Cage he was screaming, he was yelling. He was so happy to have this gentleman on. You guys might remember him. We call him just a young prodigy. You know, the next Warren Buffett, perhaps. Mr. Adam Rips, what's going on, brother? It's good to have you back on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What's up, man? Are you excited for NBA season? We're officially in December.
Very excited. The Christmas matchups just came out, and that's going to be exciting.
Oh, yeah.
We're 3 weeks, I think today or yesterday was 3 weeks from the start date. People are going to be excited, and then there's going to be a lot going on once that tip-off happens.
Unfortunately, you're pigeonholed because you're the Giannis guy. I know you're moving out of Giannis and whatnot, but everybody knows he has the Giannis guy. So he had some quotes that came out recently, right? Talking about like how LeBron's the greatest, and he doesn't mind being the number 2 or number 3 player or whatever it is. And everybody took that and ran with it, right? They took it in like, okay, he's gonna go play for the Lakers. He's gonna. So what was your take on that? Because you might know Giannis better than anybody who's not named Antetokounmpo. So what do you got?
I thought, quotes come out from players all the time or things that they supposedly said. I believe it. He's not like some crazy top secret guy. He's made it pretty clear to me that he wants to win a championship, and that that's the main priority he wants from the people in Milwaukee, and that's what he wants in Milwaukee. He wants to win it there. And so he said stuff. He said that LeBron's the greatest, and he would have given Luka the number 2 vote for MVP. And I just think that's who he is as a player. He's never been, you don't have to be in this hobby or in this industry or, in love with basketball and know that he's not stuck up. He's very humble. And so I think that's just something that is within his nature to say. He mentioned that, and I like this. He's like, I don't care if I don't win MVP. I don't care. 2-time MVP means nothing to me. Obviously it's a great award, and I came from nothing, so it's huge it's huge. But he doesn't need the MVP awards, and that his priority is a championship. And I like hearing that because obviously with the amount of stuff I have of his, I don't need MVPs either. MVPs don't mean anything if you're losing in the second round of the playoffs. And so I do think that he realizes that, I hope, and I do think that he realizes that his situation as it stands or as it stood in Milwaukee is not the best for him, and, it hasn't been working. But he seems to be improving a ton and working out. But I think he's going to end up doing what's best, and that Milwaukee's going to end up doing what's best for Giannis, and hopefully finds a way to win sooner rather than later.
So I think of when I think of investing in players, I think of it kind of putting them into 3 different categories, right? And I talked about this on a few of our previous episodes, but I think this is going to be a fun little practice for us to go in like a little circle here and talk about it. I put them into buckets of exceed expectations, meet expectations, and fall below expectations, right? So like the reason I think when you got into Giannis when you did was you thought that he would exceed expectations over the next 4 or 5 years, right? And I think investing is a big part of that, right? It's not necessarily just the best player. It's how does the market feel about that player and that investment? Who do you see as exceeding expectations going into? And just to take a step back, why that's important is I think Cage and I have talked about this, buying in the off season, right? And then kind of selling the hype. Well, the hype is, we're 1 or 2 weeks away from season. If you're making that play, the ship has basically sailed. So now it's a different investment strategy. It's who are you holding into the season? And that's why I've created those 3 buckets: exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, and falling below expectations. So let's start with players. Like, who were 3 guys that you would put into, and 1 in each bucket? And sorry to put you on the spot there, because, and we can start with Cage if you want, but I'd be interested to hear your take on it.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And my answer, 3 months, 4 months ago would be different because the prices weren't the same. And we've seen like since nobody has played a game besides some playoff teams and whatnot, we've seen 6 months of general crazy growth. And, that's not the way it goes in the season. And we have to expect volatility and risk with these cards that we're buying in hopes of the season. And so I'm a huge Trae Young guy, but that's someone who I'm much more comfortable with buying 3 months ago than I am now. And so now he'd really have to exceed expectations to be a good buy. And I think he can, but that depends on the person. Specific guys who I think can
Rips,
have really.
can we dig into that? What do you think exceeding expectations for Trae Young is? Because you brought it up on our first episode.
Right.
You said, guys, what I do is I do per 36-minute research. Highly recommend if you're out there and listening, go do this exercise. I think it's like basketballreference.com, and then you filter by per 36. He had historic stats on par with Steph Curry, you said.
Yep.
So what does exceeding expectations look like now that his cards have gone up maybe 100% since then?
My expectations would be, or exceeding expectations would be, keeping these same stats or similar stats. They've added a couple pieces where maybe his scoring goes down a little, maybe it goes up a little, maybe his assists go up a little, but he was averaging 29 point something and 9 last year. And so I think that all he has to do to close that gap even more with Luka is to make the playoffs, because that's really their main difference. The Hawks have shown that they've added some great pieces. Some people think that they'll take away from Trae. I don't think that's the case. I think every playoff team needs multiple players that can, do great on every night. So I think that for Trae to go up even more than where he is now, it's going to have to be that he's consistently scoring, not having many off nights, and that he's showing that he can lead a team to the playoffs. And that's just for the short term. I think long term, he's also a great guy. I mean, he's 21 or maybe 22, just turned 22. But for this year, I think he's got to make the playoffs to show people that, he's capable of, being that Luka type player. Because I think the main difference between Luka and Trae is the playoffs and how they perform last year.
Where's that line, right? Because, there's a line there where it's the guy is the guy, and he's going to carry the team to the playoffs or make them better than last year and continue that improvement. And you want to be investing in the guy, right? But at some point in time, I know I've made this argument before that there are people out there who couldn't be the guy, so they became can't beat him, join him. Like Durant joining the Warriors, or LeBron playing like shit and everybody forgetting about it. In LA, his first year there, a team didn't even make the playoffs. And then they bring in Anthony Davis, and basically, bring in one of the best players in the league. And all of a sudden now, the bronze testicles, as Andrew tells me their names are, I don't know, they're called something, right? That he's the greatest of all time. He's so great, right? No, they just built a better team around him. And I don't give him credit for it. The rest of the world does. But, when do you cross that line? Like right now, I guess Trae is still going to be the unquestioned guy on his team, right? I mean, there are pieces around them. They drafted this Onyeka Okwanu. I probably butchered the hell out of that, and I apologize. But, he's a big man. I think it was a 6th pick they had. He's supposed to be pretty good, almost as good as Wiseman, maybe better, some are saying. Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Colin. I mean, they got a lot of people around them, but he's the unquestioned one.
Yes.
Are you nervous about his stats maybe taking a step back as some of these other younger players develop? And I mean, there's only so many points that are going to be scored in a game, right?
Right. I'm not nervous about that, because I don't think it's the young guys that need to develop and him that needs to develop. I think it's the team that kind of needs to develop as a whole, because they have guys who are super skilled and, great two-way players. Reddish is a great two-way player. I've heard some good things about him going into the year. But I think they just need to, they're one of the youngest teams in the league. I think they just need to find a way to work as a team. And I mean, that sounds like childlike, but I mean, like, push together as a team and show that you have what it takes to actually be not a contender, but a playoff contender. And that you're not just a soft team who's going to, laugh after they lose the game.
By the way, Andrew thinks he could beat Cam Reddish in a one-on-one. So Cam Reddish, if you're listening to this, let's set that up. We'll do it for charity.
I never said that. I respect professionals. Because I remember playing in college, and I know how hard it is to get to that next level. So I'll never disrespect them.
He said he'll beat you to 11 and spot you 10. Actually, Cam, that's what he told me.
I'll get a bucket on Cam. I will get a bucket on Cam. I promise you.
See this? Now he's scoring on Cam.
They're gonna play.
Here he is. Bucket.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. LeVar Ball.
They're gonna play right before LeVar and MJ.
Yeah, that's it. That's the game. We're gonna set it up.
Different criteria. But the Hawks got a lot of pieces in the offseason, and we'll move from the Hawks right after this. But I'm glad we started here because Trae's been the talk of the town the last month.
Right.
Do you think all those guards and ball dominant players can mesh together that quickly?
I think that there's no doubt in my mind that they'll be improved from last year. And I think that's not saying much because they weren't very good last year. And that's why Trey's prices weren't very high. Now people are anticipating that his team's going to do better and he's going to do better and his prices are, going to improve. But I don't think there'll be too much of an issue. But because I think they all have to kind of establish their roles. They're all young players and a lot of them hopefully can assume that they want to be in Atlanta for a while and they don't want to just show off and, get a big max contract and leave. So I think that they're going to try and establish their roles in Atlanta. And I would hope that, they kind of run through Trey as much as they can, and Trey could space out the floor big time. They've got guys who can score in and out and who can drive, and Capella and John Collins in the paint. I think that they're going to be a much tougher team to guard this year than they were last year. There are games where Trae Young would get 46 points, but he'll shoot like 13 for 31 because he starts at the start of the third quarter he gets guarded at half court, and because then he dishes it off to who, and now he's got some more weapons, and I think they're going to be tougher to guard. And I think that they're all going to try and establish their roles as best as they can.
I like it, but Andrew makes a great comparison. He talks about Kyler Murray. That's his Trae Young comparison. Different sport, obviously, but he says this is the guy who went into this season, second-year player, with a whole bunch of hype, right?
Yep.
And his prices were at their height leading into the season, before the season started. And he has played well. He's been up and down, but he's had some highlight moments. Play of the year, maybe with that Hail Mary. The team's got a winning record. They're most likely playoff bound. Took a bad L this past week. And he's got a shoulder injury also that, is not being talked about that much. But the Cards are like half of what they were before the season started. And he's playing well. So are you still a buyer at Trey, or have they run a little high for you?
It's a good question because it's hard.
That's all I bring. I bring good questions. No answers.
No,
just good questions.
It's always hard to compare two different sports because the basketball market is just so different.
Yep.
I think people have different expectations, but I don't see Trey as being a guy who takes a dip as long as he puts up great performance. Kyler started off, it's just kind of the same situation. So it makes it tough because people started off thinking that Kyler could be an MVP candidate this year, like an underdog. No, I don't know if anyone's saying that Trey's going to win MVP, but they're definitely hoping for a huge year. And I think, and I've said this in past episodes, I think what it takes from basketball players is just a step in the right direction to show investors, like, hold me, buy me. I'm going to be, so I think, I think that's what they want to see. So I wouldn't expect a price dump on most of these players because something also with basketball guys, unless there's some crazy, one game Prism hype or a series Prism hype or PSA 10s goes just like shooting up, there's no reason, or it's much less often for a basketball player's prices to dip. People want to react to good games and not to the bad ones, or they want to react to, the market going up, but they don't want to sell on the lows. So unless there's some crazy occurrence, I don't think that Trey's prices are going to take much of a hit, especially on some of the more rare stuff. I don't really pay attention to football or Kyler, but I just think that with supply and demand and the amount of, basketball fans there are, that Trey's going to have to do something or not do something that no one was really expecting for him to take too much of a dip.
And Cage, I did a little research on that theory that I had, and it was a good metaphor. But at the same time, if you kind of look at Kyler Murray at the beginning of this year, in March, even in April, when I was buying some of his base cards, they were $30, $40, $50 cards. And if you compare to that point, they're up over 100%. So, it's where do you compare? Sure, they're not as high as that huge run up in the NFL in August and September. But that could have been a culmination of factors. That could have been, we're so excited for football. It's like it's a carryover from the NBA. So it's tough to really compare because his PSA 10 Prism base is $450 right now. It was a $300 card in March, so still up 50%. Now, I want to ask you about Zion. And I was really surprised today because his GM said, guys, watch out. If Zion is healthy, he could do some things. Did you see that ESPN article, Rips?
I did not.
Did you see it, Cage?
No.
it was brief, but like that it surprised me because why wouldn't he be healthy? He had a meniscus surgery 12 months ago. So I'd love to hear from you, Rips. Like, what do you think's going on there? I know none of us know, but let's speculate on Zion and Ja a little bit too.
Zion, I would argue very strongly that he's the most doubtful, most easiest person to speculate on in all of sports.
Doubtful or speculate? Doubtful, like you say, people are too high on him, or he's easy to speculate on. Like, what do you mean?
He's the easiest guy to kind of be like, what's going on here? Is this why is this happening? Or because we've never
to
seen
have doubt in either direction. Like, oh, he's going to be the greatest. Well, how do you know that? Or he's going to be the next Greg Oden. How do you know that?
Is he 20 right now? 19 or 20?
Mm-hmm. 20.
And his national treasures RPA is $60,000 for an out of 99, and that's mind blowing. And so when it comes to his health, I mean, that's everything. That's the baseline for whenever you're looking at an investment or when you're looking at a basketball player. Just like when you're got to draft someone in the first round or you're a GM of a team, you look at the player's health. And if you have a concern with Zion's health, then obviously it's not the right long-term investment. Personally, I mean, I'm not high on Zion. I'm not low on him. He's someone who they've been posting highlights of since he was at Spartanburg Day High School, whatever it's called. And so I think that he could either surprise a lot of people or he can disappoint a lot of people. I don't know if there's going to be much of a middle ground because it's a $60,000 national treasures. I mean, there's not much middle ground there. And could he put up? I think that's a good question. I don't have much. I didn't invest in Zion, but I mean, is 21 points a game a disappointment, or is it? I think that's a good start for a 20-year-old for a healthy season. If he does play a healthy season, it's also a start in the right direction. But if he is out or if he's load managing or sitting a week out as a 20-year-old is not the best start to an NBA career. Just like last year wasn't the best start, but I get they were being cautious. So I just think you kind of have to be on the cautious side of that one.
Let me read you the quote.
By the way,
and I want to hear Cage's take.
Okay, go ahead. Read the quote first.
Once he gets to, this is from David Griffin, and this is the guy that put together the Cavs winning championship roster. Really good GM. Once he gets to, he's talking about Zion. Once he gets to a point where he's healthy enough to play his game, play with the ball more, play more as a slasher and less as a post-up presence, I think you're going to see the real Zion come to the floor.
That's interesting because he's saying that he doesn't think the real Zion's here yet. And now this
was my take as well. That was, right. I think, the great guy.
But want to know what's funny? You're probably going to see people post on Instagram of their huge Zion PC, and they're going to say Zion's not even healthy yet, and he's already doing this. And so it can go either way. People are going to think, well, this guy's not healthy, or my guy's so good, and he's not even at full health, and he's still putting up points a game. So some people are going to use that by saying he's just explaining how much potential Zion has, and some people are going to say, well, this guy is 20 years old and can't stay healthy. I personally think that we're going to see Zion have some pretty awesome games, and we're going to see him have some not so awesome games, and that's fine for a 20-year-old. But when you're putting, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, some cases hundreds of $1,000s into a player, I mean, it's incredibly tough, especially when he's not, under no terms is he established besides, having some really cool highlights or some good college achievements. He's done nothing in the NBA to, prove himself yet. And that's what people are waiting for. But it's hard to wait on that with that amount of money, with a $600, $700 prison-based card. So I think there's going to be a lot. He's going to be one of the main guys to watch this year. I think him, some of these new rookies, I think, and the Trey versus Luka are going to be some of the big guys, the big things to watch in the market this year in the league.
So a couple things. My Zion. So guys, if you're listening to this and you did not watch Zion's first game in the league where he came out, go watch it. Right, go on YouTube. You don't have to watch the whole game. So he gets the Spurs, right? And he came out and I was watching it, live. I wasn't in the stadium, but I was watching it as it was being broadcast. And he could not have had a better beginning to his NBA career than that. Like it was impossible for him to have done anything. He missed no shots. He was shooting three, he was driving and dunking. And basically, the book on him was he can't shoot a 3-pointer. So the defenders were like, all right, all 5 of us are just going to camp out holding onto the rim and leave him open at 3, and he's hitting threes. And you're looking at this and like, okay, he looks like a blimp, but he's not missing anything. And like, holy cow, like this, and it almost like added to the legend of Zion, you know what I mean? And look, we almost were cheated. We were cheated by basketball. We were cheated that there just wasn't enough Zion. And then, we thought we were going to see more of him in the bubble. And then we didn't get bubble, and we didn't get Zion in the playoffs. And, it would have been nice to see Zion against LeBron. And, all these storylines that could have been, and by the way, half of that is the reason for the price on the cards that Rips is talking about here, right? He is every headline. He is the NBA's poster child. The dream is for him to play LeBron. The dream is for him to play against these. Who's the Christmas game, right? Who are the Pelicans playing? They got to be playing somebody good, right? Is the Christmas game like Pelicans Lakers? Seriously, like I didn't look what the schedule.
I know Luka's playing LeBron, which is going to be huge. I'm not sure.
So he's got to be playing somebody else, He's got to be playing Giannis, maybe. The NBA is not stupid, right? So those are the stories, but. Here's the other side. It's amazing, so watch it. If you haven't seen it, you have to watch it, right? But here's my deal. He already has, I believe, priced into his cards 2 MVPs and 1 or 2 championships.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like his cards are priced that he better be the next LeBron, right? He better be the next or close to it, because his cards are priced like for perfection. That's the deal. Price for perfection, right? He better come in this year. And it's a shame because Rips, you're thinking about it analytically and with past performance, right? That a 20-year-old comes in and drops 21 points a game, has 8 or 9 rebounds a game, a couple of assists, plays a pretty complete game, stays healthy, blah blah blah. Everyone should be thrilled about that. But I'll bet you that happens and his prices go down.
You guys want to know the matchups for?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, sure, go for it. Warriors Nets
gives me an opportunity to guzzle some soda.
Yeah, guzzle it. Tuesday, December 22nd. That's when season tips off. Warriors Nets, 7 p.m. Clippers Lakers, 10 p.m. The next day, Bucks Celtics, Mavs Suns. Christmas Day is Pelicans Heat, Warriors Bucks, Nets Celtics, Mavs Lakers, Clippers Nuggets. They don't like each other. They don't like each other at all. But that Mavs Lakers game on Christmas. But those are the games. Just
they are going to be. I bet you if you look at like televised, the Pelicans are televised like crazy as much as they can be, right? Ingram signed his big contract. They have some pieces. They are a good team, and it's interesting stuff to watch. But I'm fearful on Zion stuff, and also you guys should know I don't have that much Zion. I got a little bit of Zion cards. I don't have a ton of Zion stuff just because I try not to buy things that are already at their max. Of course, look, it is what it is. You could have said the same thing for Luka at any time in the run up from $65 PSA 10s to 2,000.
Yep.
So, there is a chance that Zion becomes the next big thing.
Right.
Go ahead.
I think that when you look at Luka, Zion, and Giannis, those are the 3 guys where they've got to be all-time greats to be anywhere close to their pricing. And the odds that all 3 of them are incredibly slim. We've never had a time, the market's been booming like crazy. We've never had a time where cards are this high in price. And so therefore we've never had a real bust where people are losing thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an investment. And so obviously that moment's not going to happen until 5-10 years down the road, until we can really see, are these guys going to be LeBron or are they not going to be? But there's going to be a point where people are going to be stuck with the bag of money that they put into these players and realize, well, that wasn't a good move. And so maybe we don't see those types of adjustments very soon because these people are going to stick with their guys. But I know I have a ton of Giannis. I don't have Zion. I'm more confident in Giannis, and I always have been. But the amount of money that these cards are selling for, it's crazy. And it's not even that they're necessarily worth it. It's just what they're selling for. If you ask someone what they're worth, you may get a very different answer than what they're actually selling for.
Well, that's a great point. And what we'll move it right after this is I think Zion versus Trey in terms of Prism cards is a great comparison. They have very similar pop and they're very similar price.
Yeah.
But can you really say they have the same track record as players? I don't think you could say that.
No. And there are people who will argue both ways. I personally think that Trey is a much better purchase because he's shown what he can do.
Right.
a scale. You could look up Trae Young, put up 45 in a game, put up 50 in a game, put up 42, 13 and 9, and 7 3-pointers. So he's proven that he can play against amazing defenses and, be the guy on his team. Zion's had some great spurts, and I think he can get to that point as well. But I would never in a million years, I'm Italian basketball, so I'm using national treasures. I would never feel confident putting that much money into a Zion card. If I had to put even a $2,000 scale, if I had to buy 4 Trae Youngs versus 4 Zions, I'd go with Trae Young every time. I may not even buy 1 Zion. I may just buy 4 Trays.
Let me ask you something. If I told you now that in his first, let's call it 7 or 8 seasons, that Zion went out there and was an all-star 5 seasons, basically, I don't know, let's call it 5 straight seasons, right? After he really started going, because maybe he doesn't play enough this year, but in those, he's a perennial all-star. All right, he makes the All-NBA team, a couple times, even the All-NBA defensive team once or twice, and he wins 3 championships. 3 championships.
Mm-hmm. He's gonna have to learn how to defend a pick and roll.
I'm just telling you, if he accomplishes all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
What should his Prism rookie be worth?
A lot more, because that's a Hall of Fame career in his first, 5-10 years. And I think that, maybe the market, and this just, we'll go hypothetically, but I don't think the market is centered around Prism-based cards in 5-10 years. But hypothetically speaking, I think that, what is that now, $650? I think that could be a $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 card. With those achievements, I think probably $200 to $2,500 for a base card. That could be even more. Looking at Giannis, that's more achievement than Giannis has right now.
It is. That's more of an achievement than Giannis.
And Giannis. So it just, I think the market, if you look at where the market was 5 years ago, it's incredibly different than it is now. So in 5 years, it's going to be even more different. But I think, now I'm just rethinking it. If a Giannis is $4,000 and he hasn't won a thing yet, that card could be $7,500. I mean,
okay. So I am a lawyer. No.
Right.
Unless you're gonna tell me it's bad. Unless you're gonna tell me you disagree with him.
Well, I wanted to bring up a point of, like, you need to benchmark it against something, right? So you have like the S&P 500.
Well, no. So here's the benchmark.
The
stats I just gave you. So it's great. You think that if Zion does that in his first 7 or 8 years, then he's accomplished more than Giannis. And Giannis's PSA is worth $3,500. And you think maybe, and it was 6 or 7 at one time. You think, wow, what a bargain, right? I mean, be able to buy that card at $500. So the stats I gave you were for Klay Thompson, whose PSA Prism-based rookie is $500 now.
Yeah, but Klay's not posterizing anybody. But no, real quick, you have to benchmark it against
I get it.
Over the returns. So what is if the Giannis goes up 1% every year, then that, like, there needs to be a benchmark percentage of it going up.
That makes sense.
To compare the 752. Because if the market stays stagnant and Zion's cards go up by 3x, that's insane. If the market goes up 3x and Zion cards double, he actually underperformed.
So my deal on what I try to do with Rips here, and you're 100% right, is when do we refocus on when we're looking at these guys? And, when do we start thinking about what happens to their cards in 5 years or 10 years? Or does no one care? Are we now in a world where people are buying these cards because it's $750 now, and they want him to spend the next year dunking on people, being great, and because he does that, it's going to double? And it doesn't matter that some guy who was awesome a couple years ago but now has a couple years of injuries and he'll be a Hall of Famer. That doesn't matter. No one wants it. The demand's not there. There's demand there for Zion right now. Everybody wants his card. It's more supply demand. It really doesn't have much to do with the stats, right? It has to do with, the perceived right now flip. I guess my deal is what I'm trying to get out there with the audience, and why I pulled that little, Clay baloney is, we've heard it. I mean, you've spoken to Gary a bunch, and we've had him on our episode too, and you've heard him talk about cards. And it's just one of the things that I'm thinking about with my own collection. Don't get me started on Devontae Graham, right? But I mean, he talks about guys like Ray Allen, right? Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that he mentions. And these are guys who, borderline on your top 75 NBA players of all time. They'd probably be left off, right? and nobody cares about their cards.
Right.
If they were playing now, if Chris Bosh got drafted now, or Ray Allen got drafted now, his Prism rookie card would be worth $8,000. But nobody cares. So I guess it's just, it's interesting to see the phenomenon now, right? Everybody's got this whole what could be. It's almost prospecting with these 20-year-old basketball guys. But in 5 years, is anyone going to want the Zion? So I'm a little nervous about that. So talk to me, Rips, because I know you've changed your strategy a bit too.
I agree 1,000% because there's going to be people stuck with, let's call it the bag, meaning money. People, what are the odds that Jaren Jackson?
That's not the bag of money. That's not the bag they're stuck holding.
If Jaren Jackson Jr., what are the odds Jaren Jackson Jr. has a better career than Chris Bosh?
It's a great example because people love that kid.
Right. And then look at the different, like, a Jaren Jackson PSA 10 base, I don't know, 150. Like,
that's right.
No one even wants a Chris Bosh rookie card. Like, it's not a thing that people have. It's not a thing that people chase. You look at other all-time greats. Let's go with Ray Allen let's go with Tyler Hero.
It's fair.
It's perfect.
Just so you guys know, let's put this out there. Tyler Hero and I were a fling. We're not going to
be. Yeah. That's it. You broke up with him?
He has another girlfriend. You saw. He's posting all over the gram. I'm not about that.
You don't want to. You're not willing to share them.
I don't even know what I'm saying.
I mean, what happens when Tyler Hero is a 3-time All-Star, and a championship as the third guy on the team, and then look at that resume next to Ray Allen. I know like one Ray Allen rookie card. So Paul Pierce, Dirk Nowitzki, one of the greatest of all time. Dirk Nowitzki, PSA 10 Chrome, I'm not sure, but I don't think it's that far off from where Zion is. And I'm not, and like that's where Dirk is like top 1 in 1,000 NBA players. I mean, like one of the greatest players of all time, like historic. He beat LeBron in the championship with by himself almost. One of the greatest players of all time, best scorers of all time, overseas player, and
right. Luka can aspire to have that kind of career.
Right. Everyone in the NBA, every kid growing up wants to have that type of career, and like I said, 0.0001 are going to get it, and his PSA 10 card, you don't see people saying looking to buy Dirk cards. You're saying looking to buy Zion, looking to spend money on Zion. I mean, there's going to be people who are going to be screwed when their guys don't come into complete potential and what they think it's going to be.
Cage, who do you think is going to overperform this year?
LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo.
My son wants his jersey.
LiAngelo, like an hour ago to Detroit. I doubt he's going to play, but it's interesting.
That's it. Gotta be the holidays. Gotta have more people in the league. Who do I think is going to overperform? Oh man, I'm looking for big things out of Sekou Doumbouya. Just because I watched a bunch of Detroit games last year because I was heavily invested in Andre Drummond rookie cards.
Not heavily,
but
you dabbled.
So I watched, and he looks like a raw talent. Like if he actually puts in the work, he could turn into something good. Plus he's young. I think he's gonna round it to something pretty good this year. I think De'Aaron Fox, if he stays healthy, could make some real strides. But my thing is, at least what I've noticed, and this is why I'm not as high on Devontae Graham this year and why I am still on the fence on our boy Trae Young. Basketball is an interesting thing because there's only 5 guys on the field, 5 guys on the court, right? So there's only 5 guys on it at once, right? And, if the 4 guys around you suck, you're going to be able to really fill the stat sheet, right? And I think that's what happened with Trae last year. I do. And I could be wrong, right? He could be a great team player. He could still have the stats. I think that's what happened with Trae last year. I think that's what happened with Devontae Graham coming out of nowhere last year because, Terry Rozier was hurt and just really not that good. I don't know whether or not he's someone who is that number 1 or whether now they have so many people on that team like, they just signed Hayward, who's not going to score 30, but he probably scores 17 that nobody was scoring last year. And, I'm sure Terry Rozier with his huge contract is not just going to roll over and not play. he had similar numbers to Devontae last year. Devontae's just stood out because he wasn't making a $130 million contract. Now you have the third pick of the draft, LaMelo, who allegedly is Michael Jordan's pick, right? Jordan signed off on him, so he's going to get as much run as they can give him, right? So, you got to think about those things. And I worry if Trey is going to have to share more, and do people care if he averages 12 assists, instead of 8, but less points?
Right.
Do people give a shit about the point guards? Not so much. Somebody like Sake was nobody on his team, but De'Aaron Fox. I think he could be good. We talked about SGA. SGA should score 75 points a game because who else is scoring? That's the way I look at the Cards.
Not how it works, unfortunately.
I understand. I get it. But that's how I look at it, because this is my point B of point A, which was nobody gives a shit about people who aren't there. They're looking at the stats right now. They're treating cards like fantasy, right? I'm going to go into a fantasy draft this year. I'm not drafting Dirk Nowitzki. I'm going to go to a fantasy draft this year. I'm not drafting Ray Allen or Chris Bosh, right? No, it's the same thing. These guys are going into the season saying, all right, if I had the first pick of my draft, who would I take? I'm going to take Luka, and then I'm going to take Zion, and I'm going to take Ja Morant, and who's going to score the most points for me, and who's going to fill the stat sheets? And those are the guys I want to prospect on. And some of these guys, Trey was the beneficiary, I think, of being on a pretty terrible team. And nobody cared that he threw 40 shots up from half court, because who else was going to do it?
Right, I get it, and I see what you mean. But like when you look at Trey's field goal percentage, his 3-point percentage, they're not bad by any means. He's not. Right. He's a very good decision maker. He has great eyesight. I think he has eyesight. I meant court vision. Eyesight works too, I guess.
Yes, we know what you meant.
But Jameis has horrible eyesight. That's why he throws 30 TDs and 30 interceptions. So it works.
Yeah, he can dance. You see his dance videos? His dance video there in the locker room. He's doing good. Jameis.
I'm on it. You
gotta look that up.
I think Trey. I don't have a concern. I get the concern or what you mean. I don't think it really applies to Trey. And someone who I just jotted down on my exceed expectations, I wrote RJ Barrett because I think he could have a great year. But then look at the team around him, and that's where I think it applies. Because RJ may not be someone who has all the qualities of a leader next year. He may not have the greatest court vision, or may not be able to knock a shot down from half court like Trey can. I think Trey has what it takes. But RJ can be someone who puts up an inflated 25 because no one else can.
I watched a lot of Knicks games last year. He just looks asleep. He just looks like he doesn't have that fire to go get it. You know what I mean? Like he'd rather facilitate, or he'd rather just kind of let the game come to him. He just doesn't look like somebody who wants to be on the ball all the time. Whereas Trey just looks like, give me the ball. I don't care who's out there with me. I'm chucking it.
I just think
that's a big deal, by the way, Kate. Guys, if you're listening, replay that, because that's a bigger deal than people realize. And if you actually go back, you'll see RJ did that same thing with Zion at Duke.
That's a good point. As far as a short-term purchase, and I didn't invest much in this class. I don't think RJ is the greatest investment in the world, but I think that New York is a terrible team.
Yep.
And New York fans are there's tons of Knicks fans, a huge market. I surely think they're waiting for someone to do something.
Yes.
And if RJ can do something this year, I think that his prices can go up a lot from where they are.
And their big draft pick, Toppin, he's not gonna vulture anything from RJ, because he's a rim guy. He's plays above the rim. He's a dunker. He's a highlight guy. I think he'll actually play well with RJ. I do agree with you. I think RJ's stats are gonna go up, and if it's a short term kind of flip, like, hey, who can you buy low who didn't impress last year, who might have better stats this year? I think RJ's a great pick for that.
Right.
Definitely a good pick for that.
I think he just related to that scenario more, where he's only going to do well because no one else can. That's who came to my mind. Obi Toppin, he went to a school in my district, actually, the high school. I scored 27 on him. I
gave him buckets.
He went to a school like half hour down the road, and they played our district, so that was pretty cool. I think it's a good pick too. I think he could be really good. That draft is all iffy in the first place because there's no March Madness. There's no, not much to be off of. I'm not going to be buying anyone right away unless it's a card I like. Unless it's a card I really think I like. I know nothing about that year's class, but I like that pick as far as Toppin.
There's a dude named Precious in the draft class. That's who I'm buying. His name is Precious.
Rips. So I look at a variety of criteria, but I won't get into all of them. But Ja Morant. Why do you think people are sleeping on Ja? I think he has every single piece in his game and every opportunity. You shrug your shoulders and your eyebrows there, Cage.
I do. Because are they sleeping on him, or is he just not as inflated price as Zion?
Well, that is sleeping. If Zion's price is inflated, if Trey is going up, if Luka's going up, why is no one looking? And all the second tier guys are also following. Why is Ja's price basically the exact same it was all year round?
Oh, so you're saying it hasn't moved really? Okay, all right, I get that. I mean, it's still expensive. He's not cheap.
My mind goes to
Sure. You could get 2 rooms at the Holiday Inn for the same price as Ja Morant. He is very expensive.
Listen,
continental breakfast included. Not a
this guy knows about how much it costs to get those rooms at the Holiday Inn. No-tell, motel, Holiday Inn.
So why do
you
you
gonna finish it for me? Finish the line.
Oh, I forget it, but
if your girlfriend's acting up, then you take her friend. No, you don't know.
Chingy? Is that Chingy?
No, Sugar Hill.
Oh, Chingy came out with a song Holiday Inn.
There
we go.
Hop, hip, hip. No. Rips is like, you are so old.
No, this is a better song. This is with Snoop Dogg.
I like it. I don't know what I'm listening to, but my head's bouncing.
This is Holiday Inn, Snoop Dogg and Chingy. At the Holiday Inn.
I like it.
I guarantee our Luca Nation knows this song. Chingy is it Chingy, Ludacris, and Snoop Dogg? But back to Ja. What's the deal? Leader of a team, amazing guy, athletic. He could work on a shot, but what's the deal here?
My mind goes to someone like, I don't think investors want him, and it's crazy because he's a great point guard. I don't think investors want him to become Russell Westbrook, and I think that's I think that people would say that, okay, Zion could be Ja Morant, and I mean Zion could be Michael Jordan. Zion could be LeBron James. I think
he's got the song stuck in his head.
I'm dancing, and he's watching me dance. That's the deal. He's sorry. Poor Rips.
I think best case scenario, people are saying, well, this guy Zion could be LeBron, and Ja Morant could turn out like Russell Westbrook. And who wants Russell Westbrook in this hobby is really no one.
Isn't that a shame? By the way, let's go back.
RPA.
You were collecting for a while.
Yes.
You remember when Westbrook had that season, the triple-double season? Like, people were all over Westbrook, right? Yes. People were like, oh, Westbrook's the greatest thing since – and now he's just nothing. No one cares.
It's not that he's nothing. It's that it's not exciting anymore. And, I mean, I don't think people want to invest in someone where Russell Westbrook is the best case scenario, even though he's an all-time great point guard. Because it's not the type – and this could change, but it's not the type of people who our market likes. A Ja Morant NTRPA, let's just call it like a Beckett 9, is like $23,000, and Russell Westbrook Exquisite is like $3,000. And so could Ja end up being better? Of course he can. I think that for people that potential is being godly and the money or these crazy investors.
Rips, so you were saying, because I lost you there for a second, right?
I lost you too.
Ja Morant's RPA is like $23,000 in national treasures, but what's a comparable Russell Westbrook going for?
Russell Westbrook's Exquisite RPA, both out of 99, is like $3,000. And I mean, Ja Morant would be incredibly fortunate to end up better than Russell Westbrook. So I think that's where the concern is. Just of course, like Zion would be incredibly fortunate to be better than LeBron, which seems crazy. But I think it just depends who you're comparing them to or what you think their cap is as a player.
I want to ask you something. Rex, you picked up a beautiful blue prism Luka. And I messaged you. I asked you, are you worried that it's graded by BGS long term? Is that something that you're thinking about? This week, PSA just got bought out. Let's have a conversation about grading companies, because now Beckett is private, PSA is private. You're a collector. You've been in this hobby for 5-6 years. And this is a question to you too, Cage. How are you looking at this new change in grading companies and implementing it in your decision making when buying?
Yep. I remember the wonderful days 4 years ago where I would send stuff to Beckett for a 10-day, and back then it was like $20 a card. And then 10 calendar business days later, I can refresh all day waiting for my grades to pop. And now just 3 years later, we're looking at 16 plus weeks for a 10-day. So, we're looking at 4 months plus. And we know there's a...
We know math, Beckett. We know math. We know what 16 weeks is. Don't try that.
Yeah, but PSA announced yesterday 11 weeks just to log it in. I got something that arrived there. Yeah, just to log in, That's so log it in. So it doesn't even the clock doesn't even start for them. So I got something. No, I should look it up. Right, I got something that I mailed to them. I believe I mailed it to them in August, and it got there on like 9/2 or 9/8, like the first week of September, right? And they logged it in 9/16. In other words, I got the package received 9/16. Right. It's not even logged in yet. Package received 9/16. So what? How many weeks is that? I'm on week 11. Not even in their system yet.
Undoubtedly, both grading systems' biggest flaws are their turnaround times. I think that's a gigantic issue. And like I said, I remember on day 10, it was it. And now we're looking at 4+ months, and we know that there's a plus there for a reason. Because it's not, 4 months would probably be considered lucky right now. And it's quite cruel what they're doing to us. I don't like it. I hope there's a change to it. I hope that buyout does change it. I know Nat, who bought it, is a very avid collector, and I hope he wants to change that for the better. But I think that we've created as an industry, as a hobby, a PSA 10 era. But I think it could change. The grading's in a weird place, and especially in this season, you're not going to be able to send out your base rookie cards and get them back before the season ends. I think that's why we saw a huge grading influx right now, because people are sending in to prepare for the year. But what happens when you pull what happens when you pull a Topin, Obi Toppin Prism card? Do you sell it and just wait for the year? Or do you send it in and get it back next year when you could have a torn ACL? It's interesting. I think that's why. I think it's going to be tough timing wise with grading, with all these craziness with return times. With Beckett 10-day, used to be in and out in 3 weeks. You have it back in your hands, and it's not like that anymore. But I think we've just created a huge craze around PSA 10s. I think, you mentioned my Luca Blue. I don't mind a Beckett card. No one used to mind a Beckett card. It's really changed very, very, very significantly. It doesn't bother me. I think that Beckett just as credible of a company, but the PSA 10 it's more basic. People know that a 10 is great. 9, people may look at a 9.5 and be like, well, what's not perfect about it? I want a perfect 10 at PSA, but a PSA 10 isn't perfect. It's just not, it's not a Beckett 10. There's a lot to it. I just think that a Beckett 9.5 should be, nowhere near, should be much closer to the price of a PSA 10 and nowhere near the gap it is. Beckett doesn't, I think both companies have to make huge strides in order to stay in the industry, because people are going to get sick of waiting 5 months to get their cards back. And so I saw
it really is an amazing thing to think about. NBA Prism. So the NBA starts in December. Prism does not release till March 3rd.
Right.
So unless you're willing to sub real quick and pay extra money to get it in, right. You're not going to have that card back, which is, it's an amazing thing. It really is.
But even a 5-day has now become 30-day. My 5-day is now on day 40.
Their grading is undoubtedly the hobby's biggest flaw right now, the industry's biggest flaw. There's no doubt. It's created problems for collectors, and I think it's something that definitely will be changed eventually, because it just can't be like this forever. I saw someone talk about PSA possibly introducing a black label, the speculation of that with the new buyout or new rules or whatever. I think there's going to be a lot of new moves with PSA, hopefully for the better.
My thoughts on the black label is it actually it helps a small percentage of their cards, but I think it actually hurts the value of all of the lower end cards.
And I agree with that, because with PSA, people will buy a 10 because they think it's perfect. I don't think all 10s are perfect by any means at PSA. But then you look at a Beckett 9.5 and, well, you say there's 2 better grades than this. I don't want to buy the 3rd best grade a Beckett can give. But I think that if you were to crack out all PSA, you have 100 PSA 10s, 100 Beckett 9.5s. I think you have a very, very, very difficult time picking out which was in each slab. It would be impossible. So I think it's a very complicated thing right now, the grading, but it is what it is, and I think it's going to adjust. And I'm excited about the PSA buyout because, frankly, it was to me as a collector, it seemed like it was pretty broken as far as the time return and some of the issues that they were having. So I hope it gets fixed for the better of the industry, and I think it can be.
Listen, I love having you on. I can't tell you how many times we say, by the way, what we just talked about, listen to episode 14. It's the first time we had Rips on. That was our episode. Blah, blah, blah. Go back. He said this, but he said it 6 months ago, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, there's a lot of value in this episode here. Andrew, we didn't prep for this. I'll put you kind of on a spot. This way we can both get involved in this. But I love having Rips on because you talk about somebody who is knee deep in this. You grade stuff. You buy raw. You send it to PSA. You're constantly churning your collection. You know, you're selling your bases and your silvers, and you're getting RPAs. Like, you always seem to be, let's call it 4 steps ahead of where the hobby is going to go, right? You know, you were on the vintage craze before it became a craze. So I don't know whether or not you have ESPN. That's a joke, guys. But you know, or whatever it may be.
He has great eyesight. He has great eyesight.
Great court eyesight. So, sorry, but so I don't know if you want to do it as kind of like the end the episode here, like rapid fire, you know, lightning round, people call it, or whatever it is. I mean, I think that's just like a silly way of doing it. But I kind of want to get like 4 or 5, you know, Rip-isms, you know, Rip's wisdom, right? This way we can throw it out there and we can say, okay, you know, I'll just ask a question and then, you know, tell me what your thoughts are, right? So let's start it this way. You know,
can I say one thing really quick?
No, you're not allowed. It's my show. No, but go ahead. It's Andrew's show. You can't. Andrew can talk. I can't. You can.
We're talking about the huge Prism craze that's going on. And I think it's because there's a lot of people coming in that are trying to establish their collections, and the easiest way to do it is with the base cards. But I think and I hope that people learn to transition into the autographs and the Prism colors or the cooler pieces, and that they don't necessarily want to add to their collection as much as they want to develop it and upgrade. And I think that it's important to not, you know, make your collection bigger and not expand it, but to just set it up and design it in a way that you're able to get the quality you need over quantity, and, you know, while still keeping a diverse collection. But I think people are going to just learn to develop their base collections and their base cards, even if they love investing in that player, into better cards of that person, and, you know, learn to develop their PCs in a way that they didn't really think they would in the beginning. Because I quite frankly think that people are going to get bored of the base cards and looking at them. I mean, sure, there are plenty of iconic cards. I get if you want a Luka base Prism, but why have 400 of them when you can have a Luka base Prism, a Luka, you know, Luka Contenders autograph, a Luka RPA from. I just think that people are going to learn to grow and create a better collection for themselves instead of just, you know,
get as specific or as general as you like. You know, you don't have to get down to the player, the type of card, you name it, but this will probably be helpful for our guys, right? Mm-hmm. You're not the new collector. You're still you, right? But as part of your high school as part of your high school graduation now, you're given a freshman mentor. So you're the mentor and there's a mentee. And this is a newbie in the hobby, somebody who's just coming in and has $1,000 budget. Without using phraseology that includes Charizard can't tear his ACL, or buy what you love, or buy the card, not the holder. Yep. Tell this kid where you would invest that $1,000. Sport, you know, pick a sport, pick a card, pick a person, however you want to answer it.
Pick the sport you know most about, for sure, that you enjoy watching, that you know something about. Don't invest cluelessly, but buy something that you think that is interesting to you and that you like following, and pick something that you don't see every day that you think is cool, because this is what's going to happen. We're going to have a new wave of people that come in, just like we just did, who thought base cards were the best thing in the world. We're going to have new people that keep coming in and new minds that keep coming into the hobby, and hopefully able to see that there are plenty of opportunities out there, and they go with something that they personally think has great growth and that they don't see every day, because I still believe that someday and somehow supply and demand will apply to sports cards, and that
I love
they
it.
don't want to go. I would tell them not to go the boring path. But some base cards are awesome, but to me they are boring, and to pick something out where they think that this is something that could grow more down the road or that people don't see every day, because that is what I think is going to be appealing. And I picked something out, and I didn't even plan on doing it right now, but I wanted to show you guys this. Check these out. So I've got not one, but 2 nets.
Look at this.
I'm
These
holding
basketball
up
nets.
They are basketball nets, full-size basketball nets. Guess what these are from?
The Final Four.
No, these
That's Giannis's. No, I mean he likes Giannis and Trey, but none of them have ever actually won a good game, big game. So
Giannis's sex toys. No.
These.
I don't know. The last championship, the Lakers championship. What's it from?
That's Giannis's high school net.
These are from Trae Young's NBA debut.
Young. There you go. I should have guessed that because he hasn't actually played a meaningful game.
So these are you, and we'll play a little game. Let me know. Let's call it when I bought these, which is a couple months ago. His base card was $600, a PSA 10. These are obviously, you can like anyone in the world will agree that this is cooler. These 2 nets are cooler than pieces of cardboard in a plastic sleeve. So I want you guys to guess how much you think that the pair of nets cost. Both, it's one from each hoop, and that they used it all game. Trey had like 17 points. I want you guys to guess how much they cost if a base prism was $600.
First, I want to ask where you bought them.
I got them. I don't love endorsing auction houses, so I'll just say it was from an auction house where I looked up Trey because I was looking to buy him, and they had these up, and they're authenticated and from Steiner Sports, who I've actually worked with a couple times in the past with business, and they used to be it was against the Knicks, and they used to be Knicks exclusives. So these were in Madison Square Garden, and I just think
I guarantee they're under $100, $90.
No way.
100%.
I'd say for the pair, a couple $1,000 between $2 and $5.
We've got 2 very different guesses here. So to me, these are worth. I would trade if I had to keep them in my collection for the rest of my life. I would trade every Trae Young base card I'd ever touched in order to get these, because I don't care about
what? No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would.
You wouldn't.
If I had to enjoy something that I could look at every day, I would want the Nets instead of a Trae Young card in a PSA slab.
Just so we're clear, because we don't do video on YouTube. This one needs to be on YouTube. He's not talking about the Brooklyn Nets. He didn't buy the Brooklyn Nets. He bought 2 nets from Trae Young's debut game. You know how they cut off the net, but they didn't cut it. They took it off.
Yeah. So these nets, they were $950 for the pair, which comes
very cheap, I think.
Which comes out to less than a PSA 10 base card per net, and these are from one of Trae's most significant days of his career. And it's not like he wore it, but I still think they're super cool.
So here's the fun. You ready? Well, I'll tell you. So I love what you're saying. It brings me back to about 10 years ago, the beginning of Cage Lawyers, right? Which is your origin story for me. By the way, Rips is wearing the net right now. It's amazing. It's like a doily on his neck. And I was doing some work with some UFC fighters, contract work, sponsorship work, you name it. One of my friends who was in it with me, was sponsoring fighters, and the fighters before the Reebok deal used to be able to put whatever you wanted on their shorts.
Yep.
And, at the time I was doing a lot of the UFC cards, a lot of MMA cards, and, the cards had relics in them. They had relic RPAs. They had a piece of the glove. They had a piece of the cage in some of them. They had a piece of the fight gear, the rash guard or their shorts or something like that in the card. And they were selling for hundreds, thousands of dollars, lots of money. And my friend who was in this would say, by the way, if you want, I can get you the fight worn gear, like the actual shorts that they wore. I get it for you for a couple $100. And I'm like, no. And he's like, what are you talking about? You just sold for $400 a 1-inch square of someone's shorts. I can get you the whole pair of shorts. I get you the whole thing that they wore with blood on it and everything for $200. It goes right to the fighter. And I said, I don't want it. And he could never understand it. He's like, I don't get it. I get you this whole thing. You just have this little piece. And I said, there's something about it being in a card that's produced by a manufacturer. Now, here's what's funny, right? So if you happen to give those to Topps or Panini, let's say, right? Panini because it's basketball, and they generated a Prism-like product next year that had relics in it that were Trey rookie net autos or rookie net, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an autograph, just rookie net. They could cut those nets into 500 pieces, and each one of those cards would sell for $1,000 because a piece of his rookie first game net, right? So that it would be a card. It's a different. So you talked about supply and demand, right? So there's very little supply for the two nets that you have. There's only one of each right there. That's it. You're the guy, right? But obviously there wasn't that much of a demand for it because you were able to snag them for 3 figures. And that's a little odd, right?
It's crazy. And I started off with memorabilia. I still love it. I think the memorabilia market is a totally different thing where if collectors really learn to love this and they do love it, I think that there's so much more fun to be had with memorabilia.
Well, look, you just wore it. You just wore a net. Right. You can't wear any of your cards.
It's the same concept. I have, in my cover here, I can pull that out. I don't care, but I have a couple of Giannis game worn jerseys.
Jockstrap. It's great. We love it. He has Giannis's jockstrap. Wonderful. Rips. We didn't need that. We didn't
Rips,
need to know that.
I ask you can I ask you for a piece of advice? Maybe you could educate me and our audience, because this is a play I brought. I think Kobe Bryant final game ticket, like the ticket stub, and Kobe Bryant ticket where he was able to sign them after the game. I think those are super cool. But how do you go about thinking about things that aren't uniform like that, right? With memorabilia, there's no uniformity. With base Prism cards, there's a ton of uniformity. You started a memorabilia. What do you say?
I think that it all comes back, and I think that everything eventually will tie back to having a personal connection to a player. For example, a base card has no personal connection to that actual player, but an autograph card does, a ticket stub does, a jersey does, a game worn anything does, a piece of the floor does. I think it's really important, to me at least, and to many collectors, that a card that I invest in does have a personal connection to that player, and that it's a way to. I mean, everyone here loves a ton of collectors love athletes, and they dream of meeting athletes, and this is a great way of having a certain connection to a certain moment or to that player. Kobe tickets, I think, are awesome, because when you look at the Kobe collectors out there, I mean, he has thousands of memorable moments, but each game has 30,000 fans there, and people are in love with the guy. I think it's a great way to have a connection to a player that's not a card or not just a picture of him on a piece of paper. And I love pictures of players on paper also, but I love memorabilia. I love the idea of signed tickets because, like you said, there's not much out there, which is what really appeals to me, but that's also what makes it tougher to price. And that's where the phrase, like, it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it, really comes into place. Because who's to say that I'm gonna go like crazy here, but who's to say that like Snoop Dogg doesn't post a picture of his signed Kobe ticket from his last game, and then everyone decides, well, I'd rather sell my Kobe PSA Chrome card and buy a signed ticket because that's way cooler.
And a signed ticket has 2 connection points, right? It's you remember where you were when that game happened, and you love the player, which I think is dual, kind of like lightning round when you get a chance too.
Yeah, well,
so I'm not going to let you off the hook.
We got his advice on what he would tell his mentees. So the next part of it is, so tell me where you would tell somebody new coming into the hobby, you do some research. Where if you're going to go and dig into it, because part of what you tell people is make sure that it's something something you're familiar with. But before you go and plunk some money down on a card, give me your process. Give me where we should look. What are some good resources? What are some sites where people should look about that particular card, about the player, you name it, before they go and put their money down on it?
Mm-hmm. I think my main database, if I know that you're looking for like an entry level, but when I'm looking at prices, I just use eBay. Mm-hmm. If there's nothing, completed sales, never. I don't get it when someone goes, well, this one's up for $2,000 and has 46 watchers. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because I could list my sweatshirt over there for $2 million and I'll say, well, I have another one I sold to you for 500 grand. The other one's listed at 2 million. I mean, it's not how money works. So eBay completed listings for sure. Use your own gut and your own head. If you watch basketball, look up guys who you think would sell for a lot and look up their sales and compare them back and forth. See what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, or kind of how the current state of the market is. If you expect, I don't know, maybe there's a guy who's a huge fan of some 10-year veteran. If you expect his prices to be high, don't just, buy him higher than John Moran is because he has more experience, because that's obviously not the way it works. There's a couple sites with tons of info. I know that there's a place called Cardboard Connection that has some pretty cool articles. There's places, there's so many emerging places within this industry that are just solely here to spread information now more than ever. As the industry grows, people are starting to build markets and places outside of just selling cards to help people out. So there's tons of different places. There's magazines that people are releasing. There's newsletters. But
biggest is your gut, and make sure you check out the eBay completed auction. By the way, that's the biggest. If someone asks me that question, that's the biggest one too. Go ahead, Andrew.
Let me add one. And if you can't listen to podcasts and follow long form content, go to content creators' Instagram pages and read the comments underneath of their posts.
Or DM them.
DM, you're going to get a one-on-one answer, and I agree. When you go under comments, right, like Slab Stocks, for example, 20,000 followers, or Boyd's Cards, 20,000 followers, you get 15, 20 comments, you get a pulse on the market. You get a pulse on, people like Trey more than Michael Porter Jr. because the last 15 comments said that. So you can use that, and you could kind of tune your internal thermostat, your internal decision maker, just by reading those comments.
All right, so we're going to hold you to this. Going into the NBA season, we got a couple weeks before it starts now. Give me two guys whose cards are too expensive right now, and two guys who are bargains right now.
Bargain is a tough word right now because people bought the bargains up. But of course, I'll say this, and then when I'm back on in a month, I'll say, well, that I should have said this guy, because even though, I was talking about this the other day. Like, Giannis 600 was insanely high for a base card, and then that was an all-time high until it tripled again. And so I'm sure it's going to happen more, but it's not easy to predict. Someone who I think is super expensive. I don't like Zion and Ja just because of how high they are, but could they double again? Of course. I think that the guys who come out of this year's draft, I think there's going to be some low guys in there because, like myself, who typically would spend money on new products, I probably won't be buying as much or buying a specific player. So I think that if you have faith in some guys that just got drafted, that they can be cheap right out of the gate. But I think that Shai is overpriced. Shai on the Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he went crazy high for not much of a reason, and now people are way relaxing on him and maybe saying like, well, was essentially a role player. He's had some huge games, not even huge games. He's had some much above average games, but I don't see why his prices got so high. And I think a really interesting play for the year would be MPJ, because it depends on, I think this year's and his prices depend solely on the role he has on his team, and his health, of course. So I think that I've already given some, I think guys that can exceed and that could be cheap are RJ and Rui. I like Rui a little bit because he also didn't show too much last year, but he's got, the body and the skills to be a great player. So it's hard to speculate on these guys because there's so much, and we've seen it, so much that can either go right or wrong. But I don't like Shai. I think that's the only guy I'm actually confident in saying where I don't like his price points. He's gotten lower now, especially before I didn't like it, but I'm still not a huge fan.
Yeah, stuff has. Have you noticed a little bit of a pullback in the last couple of weeks? I mean, things were flying. They kind of pulled back a little bit. Do you expect it to go back up as we approach the season? Or
I think there'll be like hype, of course, going up to the season, but the hype we've seen has been in the last 6 months of crazy growth. And now people, I think, are starting to finalize their preseason investments. And like we've seen, I don't know what would cause Shai to all of a sudden shoot up now, because we've already seen it with so many other guys. But I don't know. I don't see it. Could I be wrong? 1,000%, but he's just not someone who I'd feel comfortable investing in.
I would say
So-
Tyler Hero is overpriced or fairly priced, and underpriced is Ben Simmons and Embiid.
And
I like
Now,
that
I
because they're
don't-
lower pop too. I like that too.
They're
Embiid-
lower pop, and if there's ever a chance for those two guys to really do something, it's probably with the deal maker Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers as coach. Like, if there's ever a time, this is the year. They could make a run.
Those are good takes because we've seen them, not do much as far as their values do. And Ben Simmons actually has gone up a little, but
yeah, I was just looking at Simmons. They've actually started to climb.
yeah, they are climbing, but not 5xing like Hero has since March. Embiid is tough because the hobby generally doesn't like centers, and I'm not saying that's not going to change, but they don't like healthy. I mean, especially he's not necessarily the healthiest guy. He'll sit out.
They don't like guys who don't shoot 3-pointers either.
Right.
So those guys both have asterisks.
But Embiid is an entertainer at the same time, though, so that's why I like him. Philly fans love him, but if Brett Brown being out actually lets this team be a top seed in the East, then I don't see a reason why those two guys want to go up as well. And Embiid's had 40-point nights, and he's made some 3-pointers and then done like his little dances down the court. I mean, people love Embiid, but he doesn't get the same attraction as some other guys. And Simmons, if he somehow develops a jump shot, I think not somehow. If he does develop a jump shot, I think he's also set as a great investment. His silver 9.5 is like the same as, I don't know, someone much less skilled. I think Simmons is very skilled, but both of those guys need more attributes that the hobby likes in order to become a huge hit.
So, next one up for you is my slow lightning round. Last time you were in here, you were all in on vintage, and you were ahead of the curve on that. And you saw the stuff rise. Vintage kind of took a little bit of a hit. And the question that we get a lot from our people, and it applies to Pokemon also, it applies to a lot of stuff. You're noticing a kind of like a roller coaster with modern basketball, let's say, right? So stuff was up. Then as teams got knocked out of the bubble, it started to come down. There's a little bit of a tiny off season here and stuff went down. But now as the new season's announced, it's starting to go back up again because people are expecting Tyler Hero to do well. People are expecting Ja and Zion to do well. So we saw a run up with vintage cards. And then a little bit of a pullback with vintage. Let's just use vintage basketball. Let's talk about Dr. J and Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain and that kind of stuff, right? Where do you see that going?
Yeah. We saw.
I know you're still in on it.
I'm definitely still in on it. We saw a big rise in demand for the cards. I sold off a couple of them. None of my bigger pieces, maybe like 10% of my stuff. If that, just to get ahead a little bit on some of the guys I had because I had multiples, and so I did that. People started selling them because prices everything dried up. So then people started selling them. Prices calmed down a little bit. And now they're back up a little, but still not back where they were in like April, May, June. I'm still very high on it because I do believe that in times of high risk and speculation, people always want to keep a sort of security. And that's exactly what I did. And I think people would still do that. And I think that a lot of the new money and, people that are investing in this don't necessarily want, these cards of Ja Morant, and maybe if Ja gets high, or if, Luka, if they can sell the Luka base cards.
Listen, if Ja's getting high, his prices are going to go down.
Well,
I think the drug test.
Oh,
rips.
No. It took me a bit.
Oh, you didn't mean that. You didn't mean you were getting high like that. Okay, I gotcha.
If Ja's prices get high, then I think people see that they're going to diversify their money and make it cheaper than someone like him, a super young guy. Like I sold off. To me, it was super appealing because I could sell off a Giannis card, which and don't want to sound like ignorant or anything, but I'm saying I could take a Giannis card that wasn't in my top 10 and sell it and buy 3 Wilt Chamberlain rookie cards. And there's, when you look at the pop, you can combine all the vintage rookie pops and there'll be less. Take every single Dr. J rookie, every single Bill Russell, every single Wilt, every single Elgin Baylor rookie, combine them all, and you'll have less than the amount of PSA 10 Lukas.
So which one of those do you like best for Dr. J? Do you like his select courtside silver premium zebra stripe with a tiger blend? Do you like the optic hollow, or do you like the 1-in-1
Hey,
on card painted
that's
my
what
ass hoops
that's
premium
what
stock? Which one do you like? You
that's
just like his rookie card? Okay.
that's exactly what draws me to it. There's only one, and there's not thousands of each player. There's one card, and there's only, most cases less than 1,000 of them of all across all grades. I mean, most of them are 3 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and then there's 7, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, not 10s, 6, 7, 8, 9s. I love the Wilt Chamberlain rookie card. That's personally my favorite because Wilt's always been one of my favorite, legends of basketball.
But a question:
And
if Wilt Chamberlain walked up to you, or his ghost walked up to you and punched you in the face, would you know who it is?
yes, but no,
Okay,
most
good.
people, but I do think that most kids wouldn't. I'll say that may not be true, but let's just go that way. I think it changes because, like,
Wilt the Stilt, he's pretty recognizable. His legs have like a 2-inch circumference and they're 1,000 inches long.
I just think that people and kids and anyone in the market starts to appreciate it and see that, well, art isn't, there's plenty, don't get me wrong, I love modern cards, but there's plenty of modern cards that are art. But I think that vintage is like real basketball sports cards art. And, why not sell like 10 of these cards that there are 10,000 of and everyone else in the world has, and get something super cool and that you could actually appreciate and that could be viewed as like a real investment. Like, I don't see, if we're talking about art, like 5 cards on like a pedestal at someone's house on the wall, I don't see like Luka Prism base cards. I see like PSA 9, Wilt Chamberlain rookies or a Bill Russell.
Do you see a
PSA.
Luka Prism silver on that top 5 though, in a PSA 10?
I see that on a different wall. I see that people could get a modern wall and a vintage wall, and kind of have it be both, like, the best of both worlds a little bit, because I think that people will see that there's a handful of cards that they want to attain with modern, and then after that there's not many significant cards, because I really like the significance of a card with a player. I've said that a bunch of different times. To me, I would rather have a really cool Wilt Chamberlain rookie than another Giannis base prism. I mean, I love Giannis, but there are 4,000 of his base PSA 10s, and they sell for more than a Wilt PSA 4 rookie. I mean, I don't think condition's going to matter too much, but of course the higher grades are going to be higher demand because there's like none of them out there. But my favorite thing about vintage has been that there's one of each guy. They're all iconic cards. Every single one of these guys' rookie cards are iconic cards. And I just think that the legacy and the how important those cards are going to stick it out in the long run.
So I think, and tell me if you're with me on this, 2 things. Number one, the supply and demand flow played out with those, right? There was not a lot of supply. I mean, you were getting them on eBay. There were 1 or 2, and then when you bought yours, they were gone, and there were none left. And because there was no supply and supply dried up, and there was still demand for it, and increasing demand because of more attention being paid to that market, all of a sudden the prices being paid for these things went up. And once the prices went up, more of them populate. So more supply pops up at a certain price point. So it's that's what happens. It's happening right now, like this month with high-end Pokemon too. Prices are taking a little bit of a plateau and or pullback. Because there's more coming out. I mean, a full PWCC sold a full set this past month, and there's another one coming this month of the first edition Wizard of the Coast 99. It's the same thing with vintage, but you know what? Those will get gobbled up, and all of a sudden there won't be supply anymore. I also think the second thing, and you tell me what your thoughts are on this, is part of what made vintage go is the same thing we do with our modern cards, right? We look at it and we say, all right, come on, guys, look, if Zion's Prism is worth this much, then why isn't the 2012 Clay worth this? Why isn't the 2012, Anthony Davis worth this? Lillard should be worth X. And go back to LeBron. If LeBron's card is $10,000, then why isn't the, KD a couple more bucks? Why isn't the Shaq? Right. And people went back and they said, all right, just like you're doing now, if Giannis's Prism rookie with this 4,000 of is $7,000, then I'm getting a Wilt Chamberlain rookie card for less than that. Let's go, right? And I think what's going to happen, in addition to the supply drying up, as basketball season comes, and we're already seeing it, and those prices of modern start to go up, it makes the vintage bargains again. People will look at it and say, all right, well, look, Anthony Davis's Prism rookie is back over $2,000. I might go out and get a Bill Russell, so that, I think it's just the natural progression of stuff.
Right. And I agree. And production is not getting less. I mean, production is going to keep rising. Luka Prisms are going to keep getting graded. no one's sending in a batch of Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell rookie cards to PSA. I mean, what's there is there. Sure, there are going to be some closet finds, but it's not going to have any impact on the pop reports. But the fact that literally any Wilt Chamberlain card is 10, 15 times rarer than a Luka Prism rookie, it's crazy. And I'm sure that there are hundreds and thousands of each. Like a Zion, I bet there's over 100,000 Zion rookie cards out there between way more than that, between Prism, Hoop, Status, everything, Prism, Fast Break, Mosaic, Prism, Mosaic, T-Mall. I mean, just within Prism, it's crazy. So I love my two personal favorites is that Prism. Is that Vintage has one rookie card, and that so it's recognizable. I think that's a big aspect of it, and I love that the grade is the grade, and it's not. The pop is just so low. Each card's iconic and they're rare, and I think that's two things that are going to just keep growing as a desirable thing in this hobby.
All right, give me a prediction for Giannis this year. Gets out of the East and loses in the finals. That was your prediction last time. You said he's got to at least do that. Otherwise, we're not happy about Giannis. Tell me Giannis. What's he going to do?
I think that I have no idea what he's going to do. I hope that he takes off, but I hope that he does realize, or maybe I'm not realizing it, but I don't think he could win in Milwaukee with the current team.
You're taking away my second question. What uniform is Giannis wearing the year after this? Was my follow-up.
I think let's go both. I think this year it's possible that Giannis has another mammoth regular season. The team performs great because they've shown to be a regular season team. His prices go crazy this season again because he's having an incredible year. I think that he comes out and actually is hitting more jump shots and threes. And I think that his stuff just takes off. And then I'm not surprised if he makes it past an easy matchup in the first round and then gets knocked out in the second round again. And that's that same exact pattern we've seen the last 2 years. Because what's changed about Milwaukee is really nothing. So I think that, I'm one of Giannis's biggest collectors, both, with the stuff I have and the value of it. I want nothing more than Giannis to be successful. As far as my PC, I invested in him 4 years ago. The crazy success that he's had the past 4 years with his skill set, from going from some scrawny guy to putting on 50 pounds of muscle. I think that the improvement in the next 4 years is just as crazy, and he turns out to be a superhuman, even more than he is. But for this upcoming season, if he doesn't, I don't expect much if he stays in Milwaukee outside of the regular season. And I think that's going to be discouraging because people are going to say, well, what the heck is this guy doing besides winning and then losing and then when it matters? And then I think if he leaves, his prices automatically just go up because I think a lot of people have the same feelings as me where he's not going to win in Milwaukee. And with the championship being a sole driver of someone's legacy and their card prices, I think that if he leaves, people are going to say he's going to have a much better chance of winning. I don't think he's going to leave anywhere where he won't have a chance. So that's why I think if he leaves, his prices are going to go super high. I couldn't tell you where I think he's going to go. He's got, almost every team in the league will take him, obviously. I do think that investor heaven, I call it investor heaven, is Giannis and Luka on the Mavericks. I think that would be absolutely crazy, and I think it would be really huge for the market. Because that's
sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, give me a little twist on Giannis that I think people aren't realizing, but I'll let you finish. I'm sorry to cut you off, Rips.
No, okay. That's not to say that Giannis and Luka are going to be championship winners in the first year together. They're both super young guys with little playoff experience combined compared to guys like LeBron on the Lakers. So I think it's super healthy for the hobby, but it doesn't mean that if Giannis and Luka were to somehow team up, I think it's super great for the hobby, but it doesn't mean that everyone else is going to suck. I just think it would be great for them too. A twist on Giannis, meaning what?
Well, I'll tell you. So last year, I think the time off in between season and the playoffs really hurt the Bucks.
Yep.
Okay, the Bucks are a really, really good regular season team. And the reason being is, first off, Giannis is the fittest guy in the league. Maybe LeBron is a close second. Now they had this 3-month period off and everybody healed up. All these teams healed up. They were able to send an army at Giannis. when you have a normal season and playoffs that follow, you aren't able to have the same matchups. You can't have the same fresh legs that throw at Giannis. So
Yep.
I think there is a chance that this year the Bucks are able to. They're still going to be the best in the East. They're going to have the best record. It just it is what it is. What it is. I think they might be able to ride that momentum into the playoffs because I do believe the layoff from last year really hurt a team like the Bucks, and it really helped a team like the Heat. So it's something to look out for, and I don't think a lot of people are thinking about it that way.
Right, I agree. This year, I mean, it's Giannis is such a crazy. His work ethic is off the charts. He's a crazy hard worker. He's mentioned that he wants to get his 3-point shot up. I know last year was a main focus of the Coach Bud, and to just have Giannis shoot it. It's not even about him making it. It's about him gaining confidence. And there were games where he went. There was a game where he knocked down 5 and like 5 for 7, and there were games where he went 1 for 5, 1 for 6, and that's okay. I think we're going to see more threes out of Giannis this season and more jump shots because he knows he has to get better at it. And I think that's what.
But you also saw you didn't see a confident Bucks team in the bubble. That was not a confident Bucks team.
Right.
That was not the Bucks team that you saw early on in the season.
Right.
And the thing with shooters like that, they are very streaky. Giannis, you could see him go 5 for 5 or 0 for 7, like you just said. Right. And having that momentum, that off season, it really hurt a team with Giannis and Middleton. They couldn't get their jumper down. They couldn't get their shot.
I agree, and it's always a matter of how well a team could adjust, and I think it's the same for the Bucks. They have to just be very, very strong at all times, and that's obviously what a championship team needs. I also think Giannis needs someone, and I think this is a huge factor of where he goes. He needs someone where he doesn't have to go 100% every single time he's playing a game. And I think LeBron's an incredible player, but you'll see times where LeBron doesn't get back on defense, and then he's down on the floor for the next drive, and he just had a minute off. Giannis is already sprinting down the other side after he misses a layup, and he's getting that chase down block. And of course, LeBron does it too. And I'm not just singling LeBron out, but I think
he doesn't do it. He only does it in Game 7 against the Warriors. All the other games, Cage and I, we hopped on in August. We were talking about they were sleepwalking through half of their games.
And look what he did. Look what he did, though. He sleptwalked to a title because he turned it on when he had to.
Watching Giannis, that 100% all the time, and that's why I'm really confident in him, and why I know he's going to be better in 5 years than he was. Then he's going to make better strides in 5 years than he has in the last 5. And so I'm not so concerned with where he is next season. But I mean, I'm holding him for the long haul. I do think that I would be surprised. I don't know what he's going to do this year. I'd be surprised in 3 years if he's a Milwaukee Buck. There's the
nugget. There's the nugget. Maybe he goes to the Nuggets.
I would hope that then he's really not scoring 40 a game. But I love Giannis. I think that no matter where he goes, he's going to be super successful. Or if he stays in Milwaukee, the same. But I just don't see him winning one if he stays there for this year, next year. And I think he's going to get sick of not winning because his team's not a losing team by any means. They win a ton of games, but he's not a winner. And their team is a winning team. All
right, so give me one surprise prediction for this coming basketball season. One thing that people will be shocked to hear you predict. Andrews was that Tyler Hero was going to be actually a player, and he was right. So that was last year. So give me Luka. Luka what?
Luka is not an MVP, a high MVP candidate. And I say that because I think that he's going to play incredibly, and I think it would be awesome for him to win. I think he would definitely deserve it. But it's more traditionally, it's been more rare for guys to not. I don't think the Mavs are going to be amazing, and it's traditionally and historically, it's hard for guys who are not a top 3-4 seed to win the MVP. But then I don't know what plays a role in this. I think it's changing a little bit because I think NBA does want to pass the MVP a little bit around, and they don't always necessarily play by the rules. And maybe social media has played a role in it, but I don't think that. I'd be surprised if Giannis gets another one if he deserves it. LeBron could have deserved it 10 other times based on stats and whatnot. But I don't know if the NBA is going to be able to give one to Luka if he's a 7 seed. Even though maybe the Mavs are 75 game season. I don't know. Maybe they're 9-69 without him. That didn't add up. 9-66 without him. And maybe I think he very well could be the most valuable player, just like I think Giannis has been the most valuable player. But I don't think that they're going to be awarding him. I don't think he could get awarded it if they're not, at least a mid, 4 or 5 seed, which I think would be very tough for them to do. A lot of people
if they're a 1, 2, or 3 seed with that roster, he's getting MVP.
Oh, 100%. But I just think people. I think Luka's prices can easily sustain because he's super young and he's going to be incredible and his prices could go up. But I don't think it takes an MVP. I don't think people are really buying him for an MVP this year. I just think they know how incredible he is and how generational he is. But people are expecting it. I don't really see him being at the top. I think we're going to see a big year from Curry, but then that kind of goes back to what Cage was saying that, who else is going to do it without Clay? So it's got to be Curry. So there's going to be a bunch of roles in it. We're going to see a weird year. We're going to see guys who are supposed to be MVP players out for 2 weeks because they couldn't play. Maybe another 2 weeks down the road, maybe an MVP candidate plays 50 games, and then what? Kind of like the college football playoffs this year. Ohio State's played 4 games. I mean, are you going to put him in the conversation? So it's going to be a very weird year. We're going to see people who are going to panic because they think the NBA is going to shut down again. People who are going to sell their guys because they think that their team's not going to be able to play the rest of the year. I mean, there's going to be all types of scenarios. But back to the point, I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if the Mavs are a super, super excellent team this year in the top 3 seed, and therefore Luka has the greatest chances at it.
What do you think, Andrew? We've had this kid for a long time. I could talk to him for 4 hours, but what do you think? You want to wrap it up? You got any questions for him?
I think we're good. This is part 3 with Rips. So you guys this is like the Godfather trilogy. You guys could go back to episode 14 for the part 1. I can't remember which episode's part 2. We previewed the bubble with Mr. Rips. And here's part 3 previewing NBA season 2020-2021.
Got some real good advice in here. You got some real good tips of where to go for where people haven't really looked yet. Some good card plays. I love it, Rips. Listen, if it were up to me, I'd have you on every week. I'd have you on every day. I learn something new every time we sit down with you.
It feels like it's been like 15 minutes and it's been like an hour and a half. So hopefully
I'll say 2 things about Rips after this, by the way.
Hopefully
he has this. He's on a little bit of a delay, so I'll compliment him. He has this energy and aura about him. When he hops on, Cage and I can't help but smile. He's good vibes. But what's even better, I think, than that, maybe not better, he doesn't hold back. He lets you guys know everything that he's thinking. And I think that's a true test of a guest you have on. There's some people keep things in their back pocket. They don't want to give away their best information. Rips, he's happy to come on and he'll tell you exactly what he's doing, how he's doing it. And I think that's very selfless. And I hope that never changes.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I don't even think of it that way, but when you listen to our first episode, I'm back and forth because I just have so much on my mind and it's always that way. And I've never been the most organized person, but I just love, what's there to hold back? Because it's, everyone's got to eat, so to speak. It's not like me holding back from someone's going to hurt me. I like to talk about as much as I can. I'm not going to charge everyone $9.99 to listen to the 3 episodes like some people. If that's who you're paying for your investment advice, DM me right away because I'll give you a 20-minute phone call free of charge.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.